I'm just getting a text message here from my boss. Fun Master, you need to make a video on the Ruy Lopez showing 5 traps that could reasonably happen and do it all within a time frame that fits into YouTube. Challenge accepted. Give me something harder next time. But actually, I am going to need to speak pretty quickly. Hit that subscribe button because we got to get going. The Ruy Lopez, also called the Spanish, named after a really old monk, and he was Spanish, so his name was Ruy Lopez. Why is there no opening called the YouTube opening? Kids, I want you to invent something and work on it. Okay, but we need to get back to the video at hand because we are wasting precious time. After bishop to b5, one trap begins with the Berlin knight f6. No, we're not going to play the boring Berlin. We're going to play exciting stuff. Now, in this position, white could decide to play d3. And then, if black plays knight e7, what is black doing? Just giving this pawn, kids. If it looks too good to be true, it might be. This move, knight e7, is not a good move. It's based on one simple idea. If white is silly and goes nom 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 and eats this pawn, well, that's the entire trap. Just don't take the pawn if you're white. Why? Why don't take the pawn? Because after c6, black has now made a very clever double attack. One is the bishop, and when the bishop saves itself, then the knight is loose. Loose pieces drop off. Queen to a5 check is a very clever fork of the king and the knight. Okay, so knight e7, very silly trap, but hey, it is still trap number 1. Now, let's go back to our base position and pretend instead that black plays a6. That is a much better move. And if the bishop goes back to the square a4, now black could play this move d6. And the trap here is black is hoping that white goes for d4. And the purpose of d4 is to try to play d5, right? There is a solid reason for playing d4. d5 would actually win the knight. But now black unleashes a many-move trap, which is b5. The bishop has to run away. Now black can take on d4 because the knight's not pinned. White's going to take back, otherwise white just lost the center pawn for nothing. Black takes back. Black is up a pawn, and white should just limit the loss here to a pawn and not take, but most players here do take, and this is where the trap really gets going. We call this the Noah's Ark trap. The only difference is we're not saving animals, we are actually trapping bishops. We play the move c5, and no matter what white does with the queen, this pawn comes to the square c4 and traps the bishop. Now white can delay it for just a little bit. White can play this move queen d5, which seems like a winner because we're threatening a mate on f7. We're also threatening the rook, but black has an equally good defensive move. Bishop to e6. The queen now defends the rook, the bishop defends the checkmate, and this c4 idea is not going anywhere. Even if white gives a check, we can move the bishop back, and if the queen returns, we're not going for a draw. Now the rook is defended, so now you actually can play c4. Noah's Ark is complete, and this bishop is going to be no more. That is a very common Ruy Lopez trap. Okay, we need to go back to our base position. We are already on to trap number 3, and that happens after a6 again. Now after a6, white can actually take this knight. And then black should take back this way to activate the bishop. And if white castles, now this knight might be thinking about taking the pawn, but black can actually pin the knight. By the way, you may have seen this trap before. It is the subject of some other YouTube land videos. h3, we do not move the bishop. We leave it out there as bait. And when we have bait, that means we're fishing. We call this the fishing pole, fishing hook. Insert your own fishing analogy. And if white is silly and captures the bishop, now black takes back and black opens up the h-file, which is going to be deadly because when white saves the knight, let's just have white take this pawn, the queen jumps into h4. There's multiple checkmates the queen is threatening. And even if white tries to create a little luft, black shuts down the luft, shuts down the space for the king, and now queen h2, queen h1, either one is going to be mate on the next turn. That is a very common trap. Okay, that is 3 traps. Let's move on to our 4th trap. Are you ready for it? I think you're ready. After a6, the bishop could go back to a4 instead. Now we've already looked at this move d6, where white should not play d4. So what if black's just a little bit smarter, and after the move bishop to a4, black does not try for d6, and black tries knight f6. Well now, if white castles, black might think, hey, taking the pawn's a little too dangerous right now because there's rooks and things coming to the e-file. So black could play b5, and if the bishop runs away, black could play d6. Now if white plays c3, black might think, hey, if I take this pawn, I don't have to worry about rook e1 anymore because I can just move my knight away because after all, my e5 pawn is defended. Well, the problem is bishop to d5. Bishop to d5 forks these two knights. And anybody who's listened to my, well, really any of my videos on knight movements, it takes a knight 4 turns to get 2 squares away diagonal. Translation? These knights cannot guard each other. Double translation? Black is definitely going to lose a knight. Why did I show you this trap? Because I once fell into it as a kid playing the black pieces, and yeah, it still hurts. But now it is YouTube fodder, and you will learn from it. Okay, that is 4. Our 5th trap is really more of just a really pretty game that I just kind of had to show you, even if it means we go over the time limit. But there's not really a time limit on YouTube. Okay, watch how white wins this game. a6. Bishop goes back to a4, knight f6, okay, knight c3, so now white is just defending the pawn normally. This is a new variation, and black might play bishop c5. Ah, but white plays the fork trick. You might know it. Knight takes d4. And black says, okay, I'm going to have to give you the piece back, but I'm going to pin your knight, and when you take, then I take here, getting the pawn back and putting a lot of pressure on the knight. But white plays queen d4, guarding the knight and forking the bishop and the knight. Now black is still okay, kind of, by playing knight takes knight. And after pawn takes, now the bishop has to move. Even though white has slightly worse pawns, white has much better development. I would much rather be white in this position. And then if black saves the bishop to a square like a5, that's a problem because black gave up control of this diagonal. And white plays bishop to a3. That's like a seatbelt on the black king going diagonally across his body. This king can't castle because you'd be castling through check, which is illegal. And if I try to castle, you can see my server is not letting me. This is not fancy CGI. This is my server saying, you didn't say the magic word. Actually, it's just illegal. There's no magic word involved. And already black pretty much has no moves, if you can believe it. Black might try this move b6 just to activate the bishop, but now watch white's pretty crushing move. Pawn to e6. You can't take this way because it is pinned to the king. If you do nothing, I'm going to play e7 and trap your queen. And if you take here, well, I think white will just take, and it's really, really bad news. There's no defense to black's king side. So black could try queen f6. Now is when it gets really pretty. Bishop takes pawn check. Again, your king can't move here or here because of that seatbelt down there on a3. If you take, I mate you. So your only other move is king over. And why am I really showing you this game? Because of the finish. Bishop to c6, discovered check. And when you take, what is this? Fun Master Mike has hung a queen. I can't take back because that pawn is pinned. I have not hung a queen. I have actually played a beautiful pawn checkmate. Okay, that last example, it's not very likely it's going to happen in your game, but it was so pretty that I just had to show you. There you go, chess kids. We have to end the video, otherwise I'll keep talking, right? So 5 beautiful traps in the Ruy Lopez. Hopefully you'll get to use some of them in your games.